Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever practice session of the fantasy era and the first ever 40-minute practice session. We are here at the Albert Park Circuit in Melbourne for the Australian Grand Prix, the first race of the 2021 season. I am JW97, and I am joined today by my arch nemesis Ra.
Yeah, hello.
Hello indeed, and we are here at Melbourne for the first practice session of the season. As you can see, we've got a dry session in store, just a bit of cloud cover, but no rain expected whatsoever. So, I think without further ado, we might as well get on with the practice session. Of course, there are no test drivers in the car for today, and as you can see, thanks to Yuri, he's put the thumbnail as part of the loading screen for this, so props to that. So, yes, indeed. So we are here at Melbourne. No practice drivers for today, of course. In terms of the scheduling for the test drivers, of course, they will come after the Australian Grand Prix meeting has come to a close. So please be aware of that one. But we are now in the garages getting set for the first practice session of the fantasy era. And of course, we did have some news, of course, coming away from Ewan. That is, of course, after this meeting, there will be at least a 2-week break for, well, the series is that Yuri hosts anyway, and that is due to the fact that he's going to be on vacation. So, best of luck to the vacation, Yuri, after this week, of course, and we will be back in 3 weeks for round 2, which should be the Chinese Grand Prix. I had to think there for a minute because Bahrain is actually towards the end of the calendar this season. Now, for anybody wondering in terms of what version of Melbourne we're using, because it was a little bit of a debate, this is the version that we've been using the last few seasons, not the 2022 version of Melbourne. And the reason for that is quite simple, really. It is because there is a little issue with the 2022 version of Melbourne. One particular corner is causing quite a bit of chaos. So the 2022 version is not going to be used for now, at least. So for the meantime, for now, we are using the older version of Melbourne, the one which has the chicane at turn 7 and 8, and also the different profile turn 3 and fourth to last corner. So yeah, that's that really. So we are here. The first car on track is Felix Sontag in the Williams, and it is the first time that these fantasy cars will be out on track to do a race meeting. And quite exciting times ahead, it's fair to say, Ra.
Yep, indeed. Of course, we've had preseason testing. We might know what the packing order will be, but Australia, it could be some new surprises coming into this, and we'll see who could start off well.
Indeed so, and judging from testing so far, I mean, there's been people who have been putting their predictions as to who they believe will be the constructor order for this season, what will be the constructor order this season. A lot of people are saying that Red Bull are the early favourites this season, Ra, and I think it's fair to say, looking from testing, they do have a bit of a case with that.
Yep, indeed. They've really picked it up the pace compared to last season, and yeah, Mercedes look like they're nowhere near at the moment, but I think it could be close. We will see get once the lap times are on here.
Of course, let's not forget this track is a completely different track to secure, of course, because this is mainly a downforce track. You need a good downforce package around here because there's barely any long straights around here. The straights that we do have are not that long enough, really, to reach your top-end speed, really. So it will be interesting to see. And judging when we were at Catalonia, which is also a downforce track, you could say that Ferrari and Mercedes look pretty good with downforce, but who knows, really? And who knows who's going to be quickest when it comes to qualifying a little bit later on. We might get an indication here in the practice session. We'll have to wait and see. For anybody wondering the tyres, of course, for this week, we are using the red soft tyres for the Australian Grand Prix. So it depends on really on terms of how the tyre wear will cope around here, of course. But I think it's fair to say that if you're on a one-stop, you're going to need a bit of a miracle, it's fair to say, Ra.
Yep, and maximum tire saving, which is important, like what happened with Joseph Willows in Brazil, but it didn't go well.
Yeah, it could have gone well for Willows, but of course he had a bit of an engine failure, of course, and as a result ended up having his first winless season in the OC, and he'll be determined if the McLaren is any good this season to try and get back onto the top step of the podium. But meanwhile, we're going to have some lap times on the board now then as Felix Sontag makes his way around the final corner. And what is the benchmarker time going to be then for the German as Sonntag will make his way across the line. It's a 1:26.061 as the two Mercedes is behind. Across the line, Lopez goes quicker by 7 tenths, but he's immediately beaten by his teammate Carr, who goes 3 tenths quicker on a 1:25.0. Well, it was at the top, but now Willows has gone to the top. He's broken to the 1:24s. Meanwhile, Garma goes into third, Quark fifth, Galloway only 7th for that lap. Burns slots into third as Perinen now goes to the top of the timing sheets by 300ths of a second in the Renault. So Perinen now goes to the top. Wilson, as for some reason it says Wiz again rather than Wilson, so maybe we'll have to get that corrected before qualifying because she prefers the WSN prefix, but she goes into 13th. Chatfield 7th there. Will be fixed for qualifying. Chung will be in 5th, and Chatfield 8th as mentioned. Patel goes 14th on his first lap there, as there's still some more cars yet to finish their laps. I can see some on the mini-map about to cross the line very, very soon, as Sonntag on a second flying lap. Motrin goes into 17th, meanwhile Aston Martin. 18th for Anderson, 14th for Miklos Gal, meanwhile in the AlphaTauri, the team that has been struggling during preseason testing. Videri goes to 9th, made that 10th now because Griffiths has gone up into 9th position. Quite a bit of traffic on the first lap, it's fair to say, but so far, but some interesting times at the moment, it's fair to say, at this point in time. But Perinen currently at the top by 300ths of a second ahead of Joseph Willows. The top three, though, separated by 500ths of a second as Carr continues to close in on Lopez at the moment. Lopez currently in 7th place. But we saw this a lot in testing, Ra. The pecking order looks very, very close indeed.
Yep, indeed. Looking at that time from Griffiths, it looks pretty impressive. Not gonna lie, as Carr improves, but he stays in 2nd, goes 26 fastest behind Jesus Perinin.
In fact, he goes up to 2nd, in fact, because he was in 3rd. Willows was currently in 2nd, so he actually goes up into 2nd place as Willows, speaking of which, goes into the pits. Perinin improves to go on to the 1:24.918. And it's fair to say, looking at testing, Renault also looked pretty decent as well, Ra.
Yep, indeed. We'll see if they can keep this up, and looking at it, they are keeping it up at the moment, but we haven't seen the true pits of the Red Bulls.
Indeed, the Red Bull's currently 6th, and Roke at the moment currently down in 13th position. I don't know if Roke had any traffic on his lap, just like Carr. Now, it's ironic that he's trying to go for a move on Lopez at that corner, because you may remember last season, we saw the first of many collisions from the Mercedes last season, because that's where Carr bumped him off the track. And, well, both of them are probably got to be on their best behaviour this season, given how close the competition is this season.
Looks like that's pretty much the target at the moment, but there's a mechanical problem. Yep.
We mentioned earlier how bulletproof the reliability was for Lamborghini in testing during the testing sessions, but the first mechanical failure, well, not really a mechanical failure, but the first time we've seen a Lamborghini pull off, and it's Rahul Patel with a loose wheel coming out of turn 5 there, and it looked like the AlphaTauri there had to get off the throttle there. In fact, a few of them are having to get off the throttle as Patel looks like he's trying to get towed away behind the wall, and looks like having a bit of a problem with that wheel there, but eventually the marshal dislodges it there, and the car should hoist over the barrier. It does, but he will have to climb into the T-car. And on the topic of T-cars, we still haven't got that T-car ban fixed yet. It does work for Flo, but not so for Yuri. So, like I said back in testing, it might be a while before we see the T-car ban being a thing. So at least for Patel's sake, at least he'll be able to get into a T-car due to the fact that the T-car system hasn't worked yet for on Yuri's computer at the moment. But anyway, that's that really. But that's the first mechanical failure we've seen. The first time we've seen a Lamborghini pull off to the side of the track rail.
Yep, indeed.
And that's all that Ra has to say on that. Speaking of Lamborghinis, you can see that Laura Chung is trying to find a way through on Chris Chatfield there. So far, 8th and 14th for the Ferraris. And we saw during testing, they showed some pace, but it seemed that they've got a little bit of inconsistency going on, Ra.
Looks like they might have not recovered from the engine deficit, but the downforce is still there.
Yes, indeed. And whether or not we'll see the Ferraris in the mix come qualifying, we'll have to wait and see as well. As Griffiths is trying to find a way through on one of the McLarens, that I believe is Joseph Willows. He's just passed there, and it is. So Griffiths making his way through there. And the Mercedes still having some decent pace in the back of the car, it's fair to say. We saw that a little bit in testing as well with the Mercedes and the Aston Martin. Speaking of Aston Martins, we're looking at Motrin right now. 20th and 21st at the moment for the Aston Martins. And I mentioned this quite a few times during testing as well. But so far for me, they've been the biggest one of the biggest disappointments along with AlphaTauri. Yeah, judging from the preseason test, because I expected Aston Martin to make a leap forward this season, judging from the pace they showed last season, but they've seemed to have gone backwards this season, Ra, and so far, it's not looking good for them in preseason testing.
Yep, indeed. It's very much one of the worst starts they've ever had, and it could have gone worse, and looks like it is getting worse, but we don't know yet. They could be better in qualifying.
We'll see, of course. And then whilst I was talking there as well, talking about Aston Martin and AlphaTauri there, I've just noticed that at the bottom of the field, Anderson and Q-Pot have set exactly the same time, but Anderson ahead because he set the time first before Q-Pot did. As there's still a bit of a traffic jam there, as De Rosa's, like with his teammate Willows, getting caught with a bit of traffic, as it looked like the car had a little bit of a wiggle there going into the entrance of the chicane there. Currently finding himself in second place as mentioned. He's already overtaken Lopez, as one of the Red Bulls is starting to close up on Lopez as well. Not sure which Red Bull it is, because both of them are currently out on the racetrack. In fact, no, I do know who it is, because I think it has a Honda logo on the back, so that would be Franco Gamba. Franco, of course, has the Honda logo on his rear wing, whereas George Rudd, of course, has the Acura logo, so that's one way of pointing him out. Patel is now back in the T car, and let's see what he's able to do with this car, as he's currently down in 17th. Teammate Laura Chung, meanwhile, up in 5th place, and has actually set the same time as Evan Byrne. So Byrne, of course, setting the time first, so that's why he's ahead of Laura Chung. So a lot of equal times that we're seeing at the moment. Could be a thing that we could see during the qualifying sessions throughout the season, but could be quite interesting. But we'll see what Patel is able to do in the first sector compared to his personal best. Let's see. So he approaches the first sector now, and he's down on his personal best by 93 thousandths of a second. Obviously, Patel, I don't think, has ever driven around Melbourne, so probably a learning curve for him at the moment. As we now look at Miklos Gal trying to find a way through on Julius Anderson there, and Gal currently where is he at the moment? Currently in 16th position. We said this as well before the show began. Ra, the AlphaTauri, of course, has been a bit of a disappointment this season, a lot of a disappointment, and but it seems that they still have some decent pace and a straight line speed. But when it comes to downforce, they seem to suffer quite a bit.
Yeah, indeed. And this is going to be the big key this year for them. But we'll see if they can drag that car into points. But we'll see. It'll be a tough challenge for them.
Indeed so, as Patel will make his way towards the final two turns. It didn't look like he was on improvement. Gal again getting held up by Julius Anderson, again not able to find a way through on the Aston Martin at this point in time. As we ride on board now then with Roland Motrin, as he just makes his way through turns 6, 7 and 8 now then. Again, if you've just joined us, this is the old version of Melbourne that we're using, as the 2022 version of Melbourne doesn't work very well with the GP4 OC cars, as one particular corner is causing Yuri a bit of headache, but hopefully maybe in the future we'll get a newer version of Melbourne that works through that turn 13 to be exact. Patel meanwhile is caught up to the back of traffic in the form of Andre Videra. I think Videra had only just come out onto the racetrack. So and so far for Derry in the top 10 at the moment. So we saw this a bit in testing as well with the Alfa Romeos. It does seem at times they could fight for the lower reaches of the points, judging from their pace.
Yep, indeed. Look like they have gotten better, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, it could be a tough ask to be in the highest point of the points.
Indeed, as now we look at Miklos Gal, who again is still stuck behind Julius Anderson at the moment. Could he potentially try and find a way through on Anderson down into the first corner? I'm not 100% sure. And no, he's not even close enough at that point in time, and still down on his personal best. Still going to power around to do some laps, unlike his fellow compatriot, Roland Motrin, is coming back into the pits this lap. I don't think this is what Roland was expecting the Aston Martin to do this season. It's very clear that the sponsor clash is still there on the Aston Martin. I don't think Evan has had a chance to rectify that. So hopefully we'll get that sorted out at some point during the season. As Roland Motrin now then will make his way through turn 6, 7 and 8 now then. As mentioned, he'll be coming back into the pits this lap. Only 4 cars in the pits at the moment. Gamba, De Rosa, Galloway and Q-Poc. And make that a difference now, because Quagga's gone into the pits and I think somebody else has just gone out onto the racetrack. We now look at Daniel Fraser meanwhile, and we'll have to speak on that because Anderson has gone off onto the track. Now I don't know, did Gal bump him off the track? We'll have to see as they now make their way. Let's have a look at this replay then, and I've got a feeling Gal might have punted him off the track there. Let's see. And going into the corner, he was on the inside, and no, it just looked like that Anderson ran out of space there. Probably got a little bit, scared of Gal being on the inside there.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's pretty typical at this corner, but yeah, luckily we don't see anyone going through as Chatfield goes quickest with a 124.8.
Yes, I do know how random that was, Franco. Franco Gama there just saying in the stream chat that this could be something similar to what it was in MotoGP back in 2020 when it was a chaotic season, really, and we had, I think it was 9 different winners in that. Whether we'll have that in the OC, I'm not sure, but I don't know if you pointed this out, Raw, or not. I couldn't quite, as I was paying attention to what Garber said in the stream chat, but Chatfield has now gone to the top of the timing sheets by a tenth of a second, 1 minute 24.807 for the British driver. Here is Chris Chatfield, and so far doing a good job in this pre-season test, this practice session, because it's fair to say, as Byrne improves but remains in fifth, that during his only day in Bahrain, he did appear to struggle a little bit, Ra.
Yeah, it wasn't the best session for him, but I think he's gotten used to the car now in Australia, and he's doing quite well now.
Indeed so. Meanwhile, Videri has improved to go up into 6th position for the moment, as Patel again unable to improve, coming down in 18th, which is not where we're used to seeing Patel, judging from the pre-season tests that we saw. Maybe he's just trying to build up for qualifying. We'll have to wait and see on that. But his teammate Laura Chung currently up in 7th, so again showing the pace that Lamborghini were able to show in pre-season testing. And it's fair to say, judging from the comments, Lamborghini have so far, try not to be biased by this, Rock, because I know that your AI is part of this team, but they have been so far the biggest surprise in the OC so far, judging from pre-season testing.
Yeah, indeed. They look to be pretty much in the midfield, to be honest, and we'll see what can happen.
Yes, indeed, and well, we'll have to see how well they do in qualifying, of course, because if Patel is able to do what he was able to do in pre-season testing for both day 1 and day 4, then who knows, really? Maybe he could try and get that Lamborghini onto the second row of the grid. Who knows? But anyway, here is Chris Chatfield again, currently at the top of the timing sheets, but so far not looking like he's on an improvement at this point in time, as he'll now make his way around the long, swooping left-hander. But so far then, we're just over 25 minutes to go in this practice session. This is what it looks like as Willows tries to overtake. I think that's Roman Quagg he's trying to overtake there. But so far, it is Chris Chatfield at the top with Jesus Perrinan in 2nd, Armakar 3rd, Joseph Willows in 4th, with Evan Byrne 5th, Andre Videri in 6th, followed by Laura Chung in 7th, Franco Garber in 8th, Franco Lopez 9th, Jamie Griffiths in 10th, with Kirishima DeRosa in 11th. Make that 12th now, because Jake Galloway has got up into 10th. So Jake Galloway 10th, Jamie Griffiths 11th, Kirishima DeRosa in 12th, with Roman Quagg 13th, George Rote down in 14th, Daniel Fraser 15th, Felix Sontag in 16th, followed by Mikolas Gal 17th, Rahul Patel in 18th, Amelia Wilson 19th, Roland Mochman in 20th, with Julius Anderson 21st, and David Kupak in 22nd position. Lopez coming into the pits this lap, and currently being stuck behind one of the Renaults, as Rahul Patel finds himself 3/10 off his personal best at the first sector in the Lamborghini, as he will now make his way down towards turns 9 and 10, the chicane. Of course, now in real life, it's no longer there the chicane anymore, but of course, that version doesn't work, as meantime, Kirishima DeRosa gets up into 5th position. So 4th and 5th now for the two McLaren drivers, Willows in 4th and DeRosa in 5th position. As now going around the chicane now, then we go. As now we look at Franco Lopez, who makes his way through the 4th to last corner. 24 minutes to go now then in this practice session, and so far the top 16 are separated by under a second, and as they now make their way towards the final 2 turns now then, and Lopez will head his way back into the pits now then. The 2-time champion, of course, looking to become only the 2nd driver in top class history to become a 3-time world champion this season. Whether he will or not, it will remain to be seen. Patel does not improve, as one of the Ferraris behind is about to cross the line very, very soon. Not sure which Ferrari it was, but either way, they did not improve nonetheless, as Patel makes his way towards turn number 3 now then. And so far, I think it's fair to say, Ra, looking at the early lap times, of course, we've still got 23 minutes to go in this practice session. We could be looking at possibly an exciting qualifying as expected.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the most unexpected qualifyings we've ever seen, as now Wilson has gone up to 17th.
She has, and of course, just a reminder, her 3-letter prefix will get fixed before qualifying, so don't worry about that. As we look at the man currently at the top of the timing sheets, Chris Chatfield, he's coming back into the pits this lap, and I guess in a way, because of course Ferrari was his second choice, let's not forget, I guess looking at the pace of the Avatari, he's kind of relieved that he is at Ferrari this season, Ra.
Yeah, indeed. I think he would have had another shaky season like what happened last season, even though his best finish was 4th in Austin. Yeah. Hopefully he could do better going into this season in this Ferrari.
We'll see though, but yeah, so far looking very encouraging for Chris Chatfield. So he will now make his way towards the final four corners. As Galmi now trying to overtake, I think that's Joseph Willows he's trying to overtake. It's one of the McLarens. As meanwhile, an overtake in the background has happened there. As one of the Aston Martins got by on one of the Haas drivers there. Chris Chatfield making his way into pit lane. And so now Chatfield comes into the pit. So also, for anybody who's just joined us, a reminder of what the breaking news was yesterday, of course. After this week's races for the top class FE and World Champ Car, those three series, along with F2, will be on a 2-week break due to the fact that Yuri will be on vacation. So it will be back. The top class FE and World Champ Car have all been pushed back by at least a couple of weeks due to the fact that Yuri is on vacation. So, of course, there's no interruption with DTM, by the way. That will still continue as normal. Pre-season testing for that will be on next weekend. So not this weekend coming up, next weekend, as both their pre-season tests will take place at Fuji Speedway and the Nürburgring, respectively. So 2 new venues for pre-season testing for DTM. Of course, Nürburgring, not so much for them, but given that's not going to be on the calendar this season due to, obvious reasons, Rob, because I believe he was there during the commentary box during that one. It's just the pre-season testing venue, just like Euro Speedway was for a bit until Flo found a way to get that track working for DTM. So that's that really, and it will be interesting to see. Of course, they're going to Dijon this season, but Flo has mentioned that is also, just like with 2 venues of World Champ Car, got an asterisk next to their name due to being subjected to track testing, but that is going to be the new French round for this season, unless there's any problems, of course. If not, then Flo will replace it with another French track, but we will see. But at the moment, it is Dijon that is going to be round 4 for DTM. Meanwhile, as we were speaking there, Franco Gamba has improved to go up into 6th position, gets himself above Evan Byrne meanwhile, and stops himself behind the 2 McLarens. As we now, speaking of McLarens, looking at Joseph Willows now then, who's currently down in his personal best at the first sector, got one of the Williams drivers behind at this point in time, as Willows 1/10 down on Chatfield in the second sector, as a bit of a big lock up there for Evan Byrne. It looked like he was pushing a bit too hard there going into the chicane rail.
Yep, indeed. He found a lot of the limit and he took a lot of that. Didn't really make sense. How we move on? But yeah, a lot of oversteer he got, and it pretty much compromised the next corner.
Did indeed, and that's not gonna help Byrne's lap at all in that. But either way, he was already down on his personal best in the first sector, I think, judging from that. But then again, no, the sector 2 point is actually just before when he made that mistake. So who really knows, really? But he was good. He was 3/10 down on Chatfield in the first sector, and judging from that, yes, he was still down on his personal best in the first sector there by 1/10, I think that said there. But anyway, Willow's crossed the line. No improvement for him. Stays where he is at the moment, and the Williams behind also wasn't able to improve. And for Willows, of course, as we talked about a little bit early on, of course, 2020 was the first ever time he had suffered a winless season. And, of course, he did mention the reason why he moved to McLaren back in 2020 was because of this season. And he's hoping that the McLaren is competitive enough to be fighting at the front again. And so far, the McLaren's looking pretty good at the moment, Ra.
Yep, indeed. And looking at that, I think they could be a real challenger for wins.
Could do indeed. I mean, I talked about as well on Discord, because for anyone who didn't know, I've actually put my predictions down on what I believe the constructors will look like, as did a few others. And I mentioned as well that you could be looking at potentially each track, of course, because Yuri did mention this as well during preseason testing. Let's not forget that at each track, the person who's usually quickest could change every race depending on the type of track it is. So one car could be suited to one particular track, other cars maybe be others as well. And I mentioned, judging from the preseason test, we could be looking at potentially 6 teams looking at maybe trying to challenge for a victory. You could see that, judging from testing, Red Bull may be strongest at like the power tracks. You might see Mercedes quickest on downforce tracks. You might see the Renaults and the Ferraris scrapping in there as well to challenge for victories, and maybe even the McLarens and even the Lamborghini maybe fancying their chances on occasions. Who knows really? But maybe McLaren could be in that same mold as what I talked about with Renault and Ferrari yesterday on Discord. Who knows really, judging from this pace. But again, this is only practice, of course. Qualifying is coming a little bit later on, of course, and that will give us some answers as to who will take pole position for the first race of the 2021 season tomorrow at the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne. As we've just seen there that Daniel Fraser has just overtaken, I think it was an Aston Martin there going into the first corner there. But Haas, judging, just talking about them for the moment, they look like they've improved on their pace from last season, but still not ideally where they want to be at the moment, Ra.
Yep, indeed. So far, it's not what they want to be, but at least they have improved, so I think they can take this as progress and moving on for a few seasons later. We'll see what happens.
Indeed so, and it will be very interesting to see how Haas gets on this season and whether they can improve on what was a disastrous 2020 season where they finished last in the Constructors' Championship, finishing behind the now departed Manor Racing team, who of course will be competing in the brand new World Champ Car Series this season. Of course, the first ever World Champ Car race happening this Sunday, of course, with both qualifying and the race happening on the Sunday. And for anybody who didn't see on Discord, for anybody who's not on Discord, Formula E will be pre-recorded this weekend on this Saturday. Both qualifying and the race will be pre-recorded as a result of WRC being on at Sardinia, as Chatfield has a bit of a lock up there and bounces along the curb there. So again, probably like Byrne, they're pushing a bit too hard there.
Yep, indeed. And he's pretty lucky he didn't lose any of his front wing because that's the biggest relief you could ever have.
Indeed so, but as I was talking about a little bit earlier on, Formula E will be pre-recorded for this Saturday. I don't know what day they're going to do the pre-recording. I'm going to presume it might be a Thursday, if any, because I know for a fact from what... I was right on that. I know for a fact from what Yuri's told me that he's got a commentator lined up for this Thursday anyway for Formula E, but he might have a co-commentator. He's still yet to decide on that one. But he's doing the pre-recording session on Thursday, and then it should be out on the Saturday at 2 p.m. BST, both qualifying and the race. And then, of course, World Champ Car on the Sunday will be live streamed, by the way, because WRC finishes before the World Champ Car. Before the World Champ Car live stream, so we can have a live stream for World Champ Car this Sunday for both qualifying and the race, and of course the first time since the 2017 season, I want to say, that we've got one-shot qualifying in an OC fraternity. Of course, we know that there was a game-breaking glitch the last time a series had the one-shot qualifying, but Yuri has assured us that he has got plans in place in case such thing happens with the one-shot qualifying in World Champ Car. So hopefully we don't see that, but you never know, of course. Of course, the first ever race for World Champ Car will be at the GP layout of Indianapolis, and the first race for Formula E this Saturday will be at Interlagos in Sao Paulo. Of course, expect the lap distances as well to be different for Formula E this season because, of course, it's now Yuri Series, and hopefully now with these different lap distances, we shouldn't have any fuel issues like we've had before in the past. So we'll be very interested to see. Should be slightly longer race for Formula E this season at Sao Paulo, unlike last season where it was 26 laps. So be very interested to see. But anyway, back to the action. We're looking at Andre Verderi now, then currently finding himself in 8th position, currently finding himself in the top 10. Teammate Roman Quar currently in 14th position, 52 thousandths behind George Roque, who so far, I don't know whether he's just trying to warm up or not, but so far isn't exactly in the positions where we expected him to be at the moment, Ra, given the pace he showed on day 3 at Bahrain.
Yep, indeed. Maybe they are taking the Mercedes tactics and sandbagging.
Maybe they could be. He could be having a sandbag on the back of his car, but who knows? Really, we'll have to wait and see if he was wearing sandbags when we come to qualifying a little bit later on. It's for Verderi now. Then will make his way towards the second to last corner, as he will now make his way towards the final corner and onto the pit straight now. Then he will go as he will now finish his next flying lap. Now then across the line he will go, and he does not improve, stays where he is for the moment, as he will now make his way towards the first 2 turns on the racetrack. Now then, to start another lap, he's not coming into the pits, as you can see with his death panel. He's staying out to do some more laps. Here is Franco Gamba, meanwhile, finds him just down on his personal best in the first sector, and for a lot of people it's probably a bit strange seeing that the Red Bull is white and red for this season, given that they've been used for the last few years for them being yellow and navy, but different colour scheme for them this season, and who knows really whether they'll continue with this trend for future seasons. Who knows really. So it'd be very interesting to see where Red Bull go with this in the future, as now we look at Gamba just making his way through the chicane there. Thought for a minute there he had a little bit of understeer through there, but that was clearly my eyes playing up there. He clearly didn't make a mistake. Here is another member of the Gamba Mafia. Of course, only down to 2 members now as a result of Roberto Gamba retiring at the end of last season. And for anybody who wants an update with him, he is now officially, judging from a message he sent me on Discord, I think about a couple of weeks ago, he is now in Wellington as we speak, doing his new job. So good luck to Roberto if he ever watches this stream in the future from where he's living now. So Anyway, as Videri will make his way towards the final two turns, we now look at Miklos Gal. He will make his way towards the left-right chicane. And got a Williams in front and a Lamborghini behind. That Lamborghini being Laura Chung, a driver who Gal had plenty of battles with in 2019 when those two were fighting at the front for quite a bit. But judging from the pace from the AlphaTauri, I don't think we're going to be seeing that too much. As the McLarens practicing some slipstreaming on each other there. Willow's getting some slipstream off his teammate Kirishima De Rosa there. And you'll want to try and pass him as quick as possible if he wants to get a good flying lap in. As Garbo, speaking of traffic, he's coming up to the back of one of the Haas drivers very soon. And that Haas driver being Daniel Fraser, I believe, because Daniel Fraser has Deutsche Post branding on his Haas, whereas Amelia Wilson has DHL branding on her Haas. So that's one way to differentiate between the two there. As Griffiths was trying to find a way through on George Rote there, but it's not going to matter too much because he's coming into the pits this lap. Garber will make his way towards the final 4 turns, and he will be finishing off this current lap, but he doesn't look like he's going to be in Prix. In fact, I was wrong. I was reading it from a distance there. It was actually Amelia Wilson. He was behind there. Amelia Wilson having the DHL branding there. From a distance, for some reason, I thought it looked like Deutsche Post, but it wasn't. It was actually DHL from a distance. As Patel makes a mistake, he's had a spin, and luckily the runner avoids him there, and Patel there quickly getting back on the gas there.
Yeah, it was the runner was coming out the pits. Yeah,
It was
you had to get out of it. What was it?
A typical pit entrance glitch, a pit exit glitch, I should say, there, where a car comes out and the drivers, for some reason, have to take avoiding action. Not sure which Renault that was that came out of the pits, because both of them are out on the racetrack. It was Evan Byrne, in fact. Evan Byrne, in fact, who's currently in 7th place, but at least, judging from that spin, he's going to get some clear track in front there. So I guess there was some kind of positive in that, if we had to think of one, but probably not so much for Ra's sake. But anyway... Anyways, back to the action as we ride on board with Romain Quag. Of course, for the first time since 2016 that Romain Quag will be competing in the top class this season. A lot of people have been hoping he'd be back, and so far has been showing some pretty good pace in the Alfa Romeo as Patel locks up going into the chicane there.
And it doesn't look that much obviously than Chatfield did previously, but I think it's kept the goings for now. But he is going to be weighed down because of that mistake in because of the pit exit glitch in turn 1.
Indeed so, and so far not the best of practice session for Patel, but maybe he'll get up to speed when qualifying gets underway. But I talked about how well Krog has been doing since we come back here. He's looked pretty decent and probably showing the form that he showed when he was last in the top class rail.
Yep, he's never lost at the moment, and yeah, he could be in the mix.
I think he could do well in terms of the midfield scrap at the moment, it's fair to say, because it's looking particularly close in that group as well, in that midfield. And I would say, out of all the teams that we're looking at the moment, I would probably say, although I think I've predicted them a little bit differently on the predictions, I would say they're one of the strongest in the midfield, it's fair to say, Alfa Romeo. I did originally think that Aston Martin would probably beat them at the moment, but it wouldn't surprise me if Alfa Romeo end up being the best midfield team this season. We'll have to wait and see on that, if anything, when the Lamborghini goes by. But, yeah, so far looking pretty good for Alfa Romeo. It seems that they've made a step up compared to last season, and it'll be very interesting to see where they go from here, really. Anderson improves to go up into 19th now, so he and Kupok are no longer tied on lap time there, so he goes up into 19th, but still not an ideal day for Aston Martin, as Willows, who's got passed on De Rosa, finds himself 800s down off his personal best in the first sector, but so far a pretty good session for the two McLaren drivers as Garber comes up behind Roland Motrin, and so track fit for Garber, not exactly ideal for him at this point, as Motrin probably not going to let him go at this point in time. But for Garber, it's fair to say, Ra, coming into this, he's a man who is under a bit of pressure, because last season it wasn't the best of seasons for Franco Garber, despite that amazing victory at Malaysia. He finished tier 4 in the ratings last season, and he's a man under pressure because he really needs to perform this season, Ra.
Yep, indeed. He just needs to get more than one win and get at least a legitimate win.
Indeed so, as Hello George, who's just joined us in the stream chat. As meantime, Evan Byrne improves to go up into 7th place meanwhile, so an improvement there for the Irishman. It looks like that Franco Garber will be able to overtake Roland Motrin into the first corner. Let's see if he's able to, or whether Motrin will say no to that. The answer to that is Garber gets by pretty easily there, so no problems there for Franco Garber. It's Chatfield and Chung are the only two drivers at the moment who are in the pit lane as we speak. Garber makes his way towards turn number 4 on the racetrack now. Then with just over 8.5 minutes to go in this practice session before we get off to the first qualifying session of the fantasy era, of course. Of course, for anybody who is wondering why is practice still on at the moment, it's because this is the first ever time we've got a 40-minute practice session, of course. Remember back in 2019, Yuri announced that there was going to be increases to the practice times. For 2020, of course, it was increased to 30 minutes, and for this season, it's increased to 40 minutes. Reason being is because, given that we are in the fantasy era, it's going to give the commentators a lot more to talk about as well, given that we don't really know the pecking order off by heart at the moment, unlike in previous seasons when we had a bit of an indication of what the season was going to be like. So this time around, it will give us a little bit more to talk about. Quag, meanwhile, I wouldn't be surprised if the Williams held him up there, but he's gone 3 seconds slower than Chris Chatfield. And speaking of Ferraris, Galloway improves to go up into 11th position, but still not in the top 10 like his teammate Chatfield, who's currently heading the board at the moment. Quag now then making his way through into turn 3 now then. And now making his way towards the section of corners. And as we now look at Franco Garber now then crosses the line. No improvement for him, stays where he is at this point in time. He'll now make his way through the first few corners on the racetrack as Quag. Now then, it looked like he made a little bit of an error going through into the S's there. It looked like he had a bit of a wiggle there. But so far, currently finding himself in 14th position. Still 5 tenths adrift off his teammate Andre Vederi, who's coming up in 8th position. But we'll have to wait and see if Quag turns up the wick in qualifying or not, as he finds himself 5 tenths down in the second sector, probably due to that mistake he made a little bit earlier on. Speaking of his teammate, here he is. Vederi, it's fair to say last season, a pretty good season for him indeed, and a big improvement compared to 2019.
Pulling that Alfa Romeo into really special results, like in Austria where you finished 5th. I think that was one of the biggest surprises from the 2020 season, at least one of them.
Indeed so, and he'll be looking to build on that this season if he can, and hopefully have an even better season in 2021. And so far, showing some pretty good pace. But as mentioned, this is only practice. Some of these guys will be doing race runs, some will be doing qualifying runs. It really depends on what their program is for this practice session. But we'll see them all turn up the wick when it comes to qualifying in just a little bit. As meantime, Franco Garber now then is going to cross the line in the Red Bull as we just have over 6 minutes to go. He does not improve and he stays where he is for the moment as he makes his way through into the first few turns on the racetrack now then. As now we look at Chatfield, who is just under 6 minutes to go. And in this practice session, currently still at the top of the timing sheets by 1/10 ahead of, in fact, the man who's currently behind him at the moment, Jesus Perinen, who's currently in second place. A lot of hype surrounding Jesus, it's fair to say, Ra, given what he did in BTCC back in 2019, and so far, doing a pretty good job in that Renault.
You're speaking to the man who was his first teammate in the OC.
Yes, indeed, given that he was a solo entry in 2019. So, yeah, it's a bit ironic as well when you mentioned that. It was a bit ironic that both Uni Virtuosi drivers in last season have ended up with a top-class drive, and both of them, of course, being key instruments in Uni Virtuosi winning the team's title last season. Whether they will in 2021 or not with their new lineup, we'll have to wait and see, of course. Of course, it won't be a while until we see F2 now as a result of Yuri going on vacation. So, it will be interesting to see, especially given it will be a brand new era for Formula 2 as well, given it will be the first time they'll be having a brand new car this season since the last time they switched cars, because obviously the last 10 seasons they've been using the 2011 GP2 car, but of course brand new car for them in 2021. It will be very, very interesting to see when the preseason test happens in a few weeks' time. Now we look at Andre Vederi, who's coming back into the pits this lap. It might be the end of his session, we'll have to wait and see, because there is only 4.5 minutes left in this practice session. So we'll be coming back into the pits, and a decent day's work for Andre Vederi in this practice session with just over 4 minutes to go, and it will be interesting to see how that one plays out as Garmin now then tries to find a way through on, I think that's Felix Sontag is trying to find a way through on there as Garber now then will make his way towards turn number 5. As now he'll make his way towards the end of the first sector. Of course, it will be compromised as a result of being held up there by Felix Sontag. As here is Chris Chatfield again, just roaming around trying to get as much mileage as he can and a lot more miles under his belt and a lot of data for Ferrari. But so far the Ferrari looking pretty good around here in Australia, in the hands of Chris Chatfield that is. Whether Jake Galloway will turn it up in qualifying, we'll have to wait and see. But as expected, 3 tenths down on his personal best after that lap, still on a 1 minute 24.807. We're just over 3.5 minutes to go. This is what the leaderboard looks like. Chatfield top with Perinin in second, Carr in third, followed by Willows fourth. De Rosa is in fifth, followed by Garber in sixth, and then it is Burn seventh for Derry, eighth, Lopez ninth, Chung in 10th, with Galloway in 11th, Griffiths 12th, Roke in 13th, with Quark 14th, Fraser in 15th, Sontag 16th, Wilson in 17th, with Gall in 18th, Anderson 19th, Patel in 20th, Motrin in 21st, and Kupak in 22nd position. Of course, no test drivers for today, of course. The test driver schedules for the season will be announced at some point after the Australian Grand Prix meeting comes to a close, so do be aware of that on Twitter in the coming week, during this week, of course, I should say, as Chatfield now then makes his way through into the chicane now then, as Quark coming back into the pits, and that should be a session done with, as he's just been overtaken by the Ferrari of Jake Galloway there. And so Galloway currently in 11th. Maybe we'll see the better part of Galloway during qualifying a little bit later on. We'll have to wait and see. But so far, judging from Chatfield's pace, very encouraging for Ferrari at the moment, Ra.
Yep, indeed. We'll see if they can keep it up in qualifying, but at the moment it's looking good.
It does indeed. As speaking of Chatfield, he's just was just about to finish his lap there. As we now look at Amelia Wilson, who's just had a bit of a moment there, going through into the chicane. Currently in 17th place, currently 2 places behind teammate Daniel Fraser. And as mentioned earlier, her 3-letter prefix will get fixed before qualifying, as it's meant to say WSN as a prefix rather than Wiz. I don't know why it says Wiz for some reason, but there we are. As Wilson now then about to finish her next lap. As Chatfield is going to be finished for the day, he's now got the pit indicator on the top, so he's coming into the pits this lap. As I think we're now going to ride on board with the drivers for the remaining part of this practice session. Wilson crosses the line, no improvement for her, stays where she is. Here comes Roland Motrin, is on an improvement. Let's see, where can he place himself? Across the line goes the Hungarian, a big improvement, goes up into 13th there. So a big improvement there for Roland Motrin. Felix Sontag now then had Franco Garber behind, I believe, and Sontag is going to cross the line, no improvement, and it was Garber. He does not improve, stays where he is. Both of them didn't improve that time by. We're now running on board with the now Italian driver, Kirishima De Rosa, now under the Italian nationality as a result of him going towards his actual nationality, because the last few seasons he's been running under a Polish nationality, but this time he's now Italian. He's now going to come down the pit straight, currently in 5th position. Across the line he will go, and the Italian driver does not improve, stays where he is. David Kupak now then across the line, he will now go. No improvement for him, as we now look at Chris Chatfield, who's now making his way through the final 2 turns on the racetrack now then. As we now look at Daniel Fraser, who is coming around the final turn himself. And across the line now then will go the British driver. Across the line goes Daniel Fraser. I don't think he's going to improve, but we will see anyway. Across the line he will go, and no improvement for him there then. So now we look at Laura Chung, who just makes her way around the final corner. And across the line now then will go Laura Chung, and she crosses the line and no improvement, stays where she is. Galloway doesn't improve either, stays where he is. One more lap for him. Miklos Gau in the AlphaTauri. It's obviously a little bit odd seeing him in an AlphaTauri, given the last few years he's been with the bigger team Red Bull, but he's obviously given himself a new chance with AlphaTauri. He doesn't improve, nor did Byrne. Wilson crossed the line, she will go now then. 30 seconds left on the clock. Across the line she will now go in the yellow Haas. No improvement there. Roland Motrin crosses the line now then. No improvement, stays where he is. Felix Sontag across the line, he will go in the Williams with 20 seconds to spare. As Sontag crosses the line in the Williams, currently in 17th, stays 17th. Garber staying where he is. The seconds tick down, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Checkered flag is out. That is the end of the session. Garber was the last one to cross the line, although I do think he's coming back into the pits this lap. De Rosa doesn't improve, stays where he is. Kupak now then across the line, he will now go in at the AlphaTauri, and no improvement for him. Roke is finished for the day, maybe saving up for qualifying a little bit later, as Patel was just getting some mileage there. Down in 21st at the moment. Not exactly the best session for Rahul Patel, but maybe we'll see better of him in qualifying. We'll have to wait and see. Here comes Fraser now then. Final flying lap in practice for him as he rounds the final corner, and onto the pit straight then will go the British Haas driver. The 2019 DTM champion will come across the line, probably a man under pressure this season. He doesn't improve. Videri doesn't improve. Perinin doesn't improve. Chung now then rounds the final turn herself, currently in the cusp of the top 10. Chung is now going to cross the line in the Lamborghini, and she does not improve, stays where she is. Anderson just getting some mileage in the Aston Martin. Galloway probably got held up, does not improve. Gal now then rounds the final turn in the AlphaTauri. Across the line he will now go. see what he's able to do. No improvement. Byrne doesn't improve either. Wilson rounds the final turn herself. Her final free practice lap now then, before we head off into qualifying. Wilson across the line, no improvement. Willows now then down the pit straight. Cross the line he'll go. He's currently 4th and he'll stay in 4th. Motrin into the pits. Sontag now then. Around the final turn he goes. I believe Garbo was the one behind, but I think he's coming to the pits. We'll have to double check that once Sontag finishes his lap. Sontag doesn't improve, and yet Garbo in the pits, and that is practice done with. Chatfield top, Perrin in 2nd, and Carr in 3rd. What do you make of that session overall, Ra?
So far, pretty exciting practice session, but we're getting into the main event, the qualifying event. We'll see what happens there.
Indeed so. Well, that has been it then for practice then. I hope you enjoyed it. Qualifying is coming your way in just a little bit. We'll obviously stop the stream for the moment and then come back with a fresh stream. But until then, that has been it. So thank you very much for the meantime. I've been JW97. He's been Ra, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the first ever Fantasy Era qualifying session. See you in a bit.